What? What is it? No, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. So let's write down some key arguments that the Anti-Federalists had, and then we'll look at the response that the Federalists had. Okay. So 1, national government become too powerful.
Is this an anti-federalist?
Yes, these are anti-federalists. And on page 43, guys, I've got a chart with a lot of these on there. Okay. I'm just going to point out some of the key ones here. Okay. Too powerful. Okay. That could only be held together by force. That Republican governments like this can only be small territory. You can't do one this big. It'll have to be held together by force. Okay. Another big one is that the president or the executive would become like a king. And one of the major sticking points here, guys, is that this new Constitution does not include a Bill of Rights, which we had become accustomed to under the English documents, yes? Knowing what our rights were, having those rights listed, okay? That wasn't present. So your anti-federalists, your big ones, obviously Patrick Henry, Henry Clinton of New York, Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts. These are some of your anti-federalists that wrote the anti-federalist papers. Okay, so the Federalist counter to this is that, as we read yesterday, separation of powers prevent a concentration of power in the government, preventing it from becoming too powerful. Does that make sense? And also, of course, checks and balances, that system of mutual frustration, okay, that prevents one branch from becoming too powerful. Okay, and that certainly is applicable here with the president becoming king. Now, I know there's a lot of people that love to say, Donald Trump was an authoritarian, okay, which in reality I think is silly. Have we had any president that came close to becoming like a monarch? Yeah, the guy we elected 4 times. Yeah. And then, tried out a little fascism here and some socialism here and government control and the expansion of government, the national government. Okay, sure. But no, he wasn't a king. What did the Supreme Court do to the New Deal? Right? This system worked. Okay? And so that's the explanation here. Now, the Federalist argument against having a Bill of Rights in the Constitution is that all the national powers are listed in the Constitution. And government would never go beyond the powers that it's given in the Constitution, would it? Now, if you look at Article 1, Section 8, this section says Congress is empowered to do the following. This is what they can do. They can lay and collect taxes. They can borrow money, good at that. Regulate national and international trade, establish rules for naturalization for citizenship and bankruptcy, coin money, and set standards for weights and measures. Inches in yards and miles per hour instead of the metric system. No, I'm too old to change. We're not going there. Okay? I like my inches. I like the inches. I like the 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch and 1/8 inch. 16. Now, you guys that are thinking about engineering, yeah, I like my wife, she works with European companies and so forth, and they're all on the metric system, you know, so you got to learn that crap. I don't have to learn that crap. Not doing it. Guys. So there's a bunch of powers that they have. Only Congress can declare war, right? So all the national powers are listed, they won't go beyond that. And their argument is that most of the states have bills of rights in them. Those will protect your rights. Now, the Anti-Federalists are not buying this. So as a condition of ratification, Massachusetts says, we will not ratify. North Carolina says, we will not ratify unless you put in a Bill of Rights. So the Federalists promised. In the first Congress, we will write and adopt a Bill of Rights and put it in the Constitution. We don't have time. We need to get this dang thing ratified now. But we promise we'll put it in there. Okay? Now, one of the famous Federalists, right? Madison wrote, what, 28 of the 85? Hamilton wrote 51, right? And Jay wrote 5. So one of the main Federalists, Madison, have we talked about what Madison goes on to become after the first government is established? Speaker of the House, right? Where he will help author the same Bill of Rights that he thought was not needed. Which is ironic. That's irony, right? And who better to write the Bill of Rights than James Madison? Yes. Yep. Okay.
Wait.
So,
I thought this was.
So these are the Federalist arguments over here. These are the anti-feds.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait. So Madison was a Federalist. He also didn't want a Bill of Rights.
He didn't think it was needed.
Was that a generally Federalist position? Or
Yes.
Was this
Yes. Yes. It's not needed. Because this new government's not going to go beyond its powers that it's given. I'm not buying, I'm selling that, right? And thank goodness we are. Yes? Thank goodness the Anti-Federalists in those states like North Carolina and Massachusetts demanded a Bill of Rights. Thank them. You know what I mean? Like, thank you for doing that. Because our rights are listed. Good? Okay, so the first state, I think we talked about this. We talked about this? December 7th, 1788, Delaware, right? Delaware's the first to ratify. And then the 9th state to ratify is another small state, New Hampshire. And once New Hampshire ratified the Constitution, based on Article 7 of the Constitution, you had 9 of 13 ratified. The new Constitution is adopted and implemented. It is the supreme law of the land. The U.S. Constitution. Okay. So we got that done. Woo! Now, let's learn about the document itself. Some of it we already know. But there are 7 articles. So if you want a new header, basics of the Constitution. Okay. Seven articles. The first 3 are the 3 branches, right? In order of really of importance in the eyes of the founders. So Article 1, legislative branch. Article 2, executive branch. Article 3, judicial branch. Now, guys, the last few weeks of school, we will break down each branch. So section 5, 6, and 7 are the 3 branches in this class. We're on section 2. And we will go through that quite quickly because you can handle that. My regular class, I take a little more time. Okay? But you already know a lot of it. You just don't know you know a lot of it, okay? Because we've been talking about a lot of it already, okay? All right, so let's skip to Article 4. Now, you guys know this. Let me make sure you know this. Legislative branch has the purse, makes laws, right? You know that. Executive branch enforces, carries out the law, has the sword, yes? The judicial branch at the beginning is the weakest of the three, according to Hamilton, yes? Until 1803, correct? And then it becomes kind of a co-equal branch of government, if not stronger than the others. Okay. So, yeah, Article 4, header. Interstate and federal relations. So what Article 4 addresses is relationships between the states, interstate, and relationships between the state and federal government. State and federal governments. Okay, good. So there are several clauses in Article 4, and I think in second hour I just got through the first one. Okay, so let's get through that. It's called the full faith and credit clause. Full faith and credit clause. Okay, what this means, what the Constitution states, is that one state must recognize another state's official documents. One state must recognize another state's official document. States must honor one another's laws, records, and court rulings, contracts, official documents, and so forth. Okay? Now, I assume, but not for sure, I had Minty second hour. I didn't lose it, did I?
If you're looking for your driver's license, it's on the back.
Oh, there it is. Usually in the middle. This, driver's license, right? All you guys got one of them? I can use this in Kansas, right? I can use this in any of the other 49 states. Why? Because of the full faith and credit clause. Okay? Driver's license number being on. Okay. Or my picture. Okay. Now, what else? Okay, so you got driver's licenses. Now, what about a teaching license? Will my teaching license from Kansas work in Texas? Yes and no. So one of the classes you have to take to become a teacher in Kansas is Kansas history. So although Texas, I moved to Texas, they might give me a job, but they say you have to take this class. You know what I mean? In the next year, you need to take this class. So you can get the license in Texas, okay? If you're a real estate agent in Kansas, you're a Kansas real estate agent, does that work in another state? There's probably some hoops you got to jump through, okay? But generally, they will recognize the fact that you've done the work to get one in Kansas. And a lot of the, regulations on that are similar in each state, okay? What about marriage licenses? Now, marriage licenses are issued by states. Now, I was married in one of the most corrupt state capitals of the 50 states. I was married in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Okay. When I moved to Kansas, they had to recognize that license, even though it came from Baton Rouge. Okay. I don't know if they still make you do this, but when we applied for our marriage license in Baton Rouge, we had to do an AIDS test. I don't know if you still have to do that. Yeah, that was a thing. Because that would prevent, somebody from marrying, that had AIDS and they didn't tell their partner. Okay. Which, by the way, is against the law. If you have AIDS, to sleep with somebody that doesn't know that. Okay. You can go to jail for that. All right, now. Sorry. It's just interesting. It's interesting information, isn't it? Okay. All right. So now, before you were born, Massachusetts legalized gay marriage. Right? I may have talked about this at the beginning of the semester. Children. Now, if somebody, a same-sex couple got married in Massachusetts and decided, hey, I got this really good job offer in Alabama. Alabama is like, hey, well, hold up now. We ain't ready for all this down here. This is for us. Okay? So, believe it or not, Congress passed a law. Congress passed a law called the Defense of Marriage Act. Defense of Marriage Act, otherwise known as DOMA, that a Republican Congress passed and a Democratic Bill Clinton president signed into law that said Alabama, Kansas does not have to recognize a same-sex marriage from Massachusetts. Okay? And you tell me, is this law constitutional? No. You know that because you know about the full faith and credit clause, right? Do you think Congress knew this was unconstitutional when they passed it and Clinton knew when he signed it? Of course they did. Everybody knew it was unconstitutional, but nobody cared because they wanted to protect their states from gay marriage. They weren't ready for it. This law stood for 13 years without being overturned. Now, here's the thing. The Supreme Court takes cases, only cases, it wants to hear that they feel the American people are ready for them to decide. Okay? Do you think there were other cases before Brown versus Board of Education that could have overturned segregation? Yeah, sure. But the Supreme Court didn't feel the country was ready for that. So it stood, and then 13 years later, they finally took the case and said this is unconstitutional. So now gay couples could marry and move to different states, and they would have to recognize it. And then about 3 years after this, in 2017, Congress found the right for same-sex couples to marry in the 14th Amendment. Equal protection under the law for all citizens. Okay? Obviously, guys, there's benefits with marriage. So if you are single paying taxes, you pay more in taxes than a married couple filing jointly. Okay? Health insurance. I get my health insurance through my wife's work. When she retires, she'll get it through my work. Okay? Gay couples couldn't do that. Okay? If they moved to Kansas, they were married in Massachusetts, they couldn't do that. Okay? So, there it is. Okay? So the full faith and credit clause is important and really does impact the relationship between the states. Okay? And recognize death certificates, contracts, wills, all kinds of official documents that have to be recognized by other states. Yes? Okay. That's where what time we get there? Who knows? Who knows? Okay. But that's where we got in the second hour. So tomorrow or Monday, we're going to get into privileges and immunities and some other interesting parts of the Article 4. And then we're going to start learning the 27th Amendment, which is part of this section.